Welcome everybody back to another edition of the Tech Woke Podcast. I am your host, Chris, Information Systems Security Officer inside the Gov's Tech space. And in today's podcast, we have a great guest. His name is Emmanuel. Emmanuel has been working in the cybersecurity space for about 5 years. He's got a secret clearance. He's been working, teaching. He's been a professor, has a CSSP. He's been doing it, killing it. And in this podcast, we're going to talk about a lot of GRC, RMF, and how to get into the space and how to thrive in the space. But without further ado, Emmanuel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
I appreciate you for coming on. You did do RMF Academy, and then just talking to you and learning some things about you, man, you've really been killing it. So I appreciate you for joining. And I just wanted to see if we can interview you so we can just kind of get your story out to the world about the things that you were doing. But for the audience, can you briefly describe who you are, and then also talk about the things that you've been doing in tech and how you got into tech?
Absolutely. So, for those of y'all who don't know, my name is Emmanuel Wajaku. I am a senior information systems security officer. I work in GovTech. That's where I got my start. I've been working for the last 5 years or so. I got in through pretty much the traditional route. I went to school and then I got a recommendation through school. And I didn't really plan on getting into GovTech at all. I just knew I really wanted to get into cybersecurity. And I had applied to a ton of different jobs. And thankfully, after I started networking around, that was the job I got. So I'm really grateful to be in the space.
I'm happy you're in the space. You're killing it. Just so you can kind of get an audience, I'm going to get a little bit of the audience to you. So you got a top secret clearance at 23 years old, man. Like, how did you get that opportunity? And did you really know the value of a clearance?
That's a great question. I definitely did not at all. All I knew was I wanted a job and I was just applying. But one of the things, and I would say one of the biggest mistakes I made early on in my career, is I thought that as long as I was really skilled, somebody was just going to find me and just pay me. And that was just not the case where I was. And I realized that I had to build skills as I was building my network, or it just wasn't going to work. So I went around just going from person to person. And luckily, it was actually my career counselor because he had found out about me. I'd went to him when I was, going around looking for a job, and he helped me set up my LinkedIn. They helped me with my resume and everything. And eventually, the third time I came back to him, like, look, I'd done everything I could. I was the number one search result. I got my GPA up. I don't know what to do. And he thankfully recommended me into my first position. That was as my first clear position as a sysadmin, and that was how I got my TS. But at the time, it was at DOE, so they called it a Q clearance.
Okay, so yeah, Q currency, and that's amazing. And the one thing I want the audience to take away is when people were giving you information, you just took it and ran with it. That's the one thing I did know about you. Like, when somebody give you something, you're like, okay, you shouldn't have gave that to me because I'm about to go, about to go take advantage of that. So you just, like, for example, like, what are some tips? Like, I know you gave me some of the tips. Like, what are some things you added on your resume? Was it like, was you trying to focus on a position, or how did it go?
So what I did, I took I kind of hesitate to give out advice. I'm kind of a man of extremes. So I pretty much I tailored my resume to every single job I wanted, and I put all of my skills into AI. And I said, this is what I've been doing. This is what I'm good at. I just gave it a huge dump, like a few pages. And I said, give me the top 5 positions I'm most qualified to get. And at the top of that was ISSO. So that was how I now found out and started applying to ISSO positions.
That's smart. And that's how you do it. I mean, you got to use AI as a tool. I mean, there's nothing wrong with using it. I use AI for my resumes, AI for certain things. I wouldn't depend on it because sometimes it doesn't know what it's talking about. But you definitely got to use it. And like you said, you became the number one search. And did you do that for LinkedIn also, or did you didn't use LinkedIn at the time?
Yeah, it was for LinkedIn, but I was in a much smaller city. I was in Augusta slash Aiken at the time.
Okay.
So it was a lot easier to get up. Number one in Atlanta, I highly doubt it. But it was really helpful at the time because the clear space is pretty small. So it's kind of like once you're in, you're good, but it's really hard to break in if you don't know anybody.
Yeah, it's extremely hard. Okay. And then with the clearance too, like, there's different types of clearances, top secret, secret, those type of secret. Do you think that having a clearance can help increase the money that you make, or and then if so, like, I mean, what's your thoughts on that on clearances in general?
That's a great question. I would say yes, asterisk, it depends on where you are. Because in certain places where the demand for clear talent isn't all that high, it may not do as much for you. Because one thing I found, it's not enough to just have a clearance. They have to have a role that fits you that requires a clearance. So if they have a role that fits you that requires a clearance, you could just rock it ahead. And I think that was really my biggest advantage was that they didn't have to clear me and they didn't have to train me very much on the technical side because this is what I do for fun as a hobby as well as work.
Nah, that's interesting. It's good. Like and like you said, it just depends on where you at. Like being in Georgia, there's only so many clear positions out there. DC, you have a lot of clear positions, and in the DMV area, they kind of pay a little bit more depending on your clearance. And then also too, spread out through the country, you got places like New Mexico, you got places like Atlanta, you got places like North Carolina. There's so many clear positions, but it varies depending on the cost of living and et cetera. California might pay a lot, but you probably gonna pay that whole check for rent. So it definitely can help. Yeah. Yeah. So as a system administrator, like a lot of people straight want to get into tech, and you went from system administrator to ISSO, which is probably the best thing to do, to be honest with you, because you understand. I didn't have that opportunity, but can you explain for yourself, like, what did you do as a system administrator? And also explain how did that doing that role help you transition into cybersecurity in general?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest part of I gotta be careful how I say this because one thing I love this quote by Steve Jobs. He said you can only connect the dots looking back. So now looking back, it all makes perfect sense. But at the time, I was just kind of just aiming for impact, throwing things at the wall and seeing what stuck. But in retrospect, the three biggest things that I did was that I was proactive about connecting with people. So I would just sit in meetings having no idea what they were talking about. And I would just
Mm.
write down everything I didn't know. I'm like, oh, poem. Okay, what's that? Okay. All right. I even, okay. And I would just go and look all these things up. So I was already literate with the ISO terms before I even got to the role just because I was collaborating with the people. The second thing is that, and this is really the biggest thing that I found, is that the whole line on the resume thing is not going to work. But what you have to do is you have to translate it to the role. So, for example, as a sysadmin, we did a lot of hardening and standing up systems and sticking them, pure administration. But you can tweak that. That is now system hardening. That's a cybersecurity skill. So you could come in and you can say, "Oh, I don't just know the STIGs; I know how to implement them," and that could be a big deal that you can actually prove, as opposed to just saying something that you may not know.
Nah, I would agree 100%. Like implementation is a big thing, especially as an ISO. And that's one thing I preach to a lot of people. Like I was just helping somebody recently. It's like for example, I was helping somebody. She was a teacher, right? So the first thing we did was we had to make a resume. So and I told her like it's no point in really lying. You got to tailor to what you're actually able to do. So she was able to tailor it to actually a teaching to like an ed tech position, right? So she ended up getting an ed tech position within 30 days. You know what I'm
Nice.
saying? And now she's doing that ed tech position. She's learning about HIPAA. She's learning about cloud. She's learning about all this stuff. So now she can pivot that and just convert it to maybe an ISO, maybe another position. So that's the good thing about working in roles. You don't lie. And then two, another a lot of and then this is what I'm learning, Emmanuel. And tell me if I'm right. If you've seen it too, it's like a lot of these roles they're verifying your work experience. So it's like even if you lie, they're gonna verify it. Then sometimes you might not even get the job because you lied. So I mean,
Yes. I always tell this, like I tell my students, if you can't, worst case, if you can't do it in a weekend, don't even put it on your resume. I remember when I first applied to my sysadmin position, right? I was like, do y'all need me to submit my degree? Because I was really proud. I had this like e-degree. So it was a PDF and you could click it and it would show you like a verification code and everything. So I wanted them to see my e-degree. And like, no, we don't need that. We did the background check.
oh
And I was
damn.
like, what do you mean? I thought the background check was criminal. They're like, no, we got all your degrees, certs, and everything. We knew all that before the interview. They just asked to see if you're honest. I had no idea. They just told me that after I had gotten the job. So yeah, you were spot on with that. They are verifying.
Yeah, they do. Like even some positions I did, they pulling degrees, all that. And a lot of times they do it before you even get there. You have no idea. And that can and now that you think about it, that could be the reason why sometimes you didn't get the job. It wasn't that you didn't do a bad job, it's because they probably already know. They use LinkedIn just like us. They look up everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me about like so you've been working ISSO and you transitioned to that ISSO role after becoming a system administrator. Can you tell me a little bit about the day to day of what you did as being an ISO and things that you did?
Absolutely. So my day to day kind of varies depending on what fire I have to put out. But I
Hmm.
would say the number one thing that I spend most of my time doing is I'm in EMAS, updating documentation, making sure the change logs and everything are reconciled with what was been improved. And I give my ISM a brief at least once a week to let them know what's going on with the status of everything. Because one thing my ISM told me that always stuck with me is like, Emmanuel, you can't control what people do, but you can always control the communication. And so I always kept that in mind. I always think about controlling the communication there and reading and reviewing weekly vulnerability scans to make sure that I never miss what I call the boring basics. Just making sure your credential scans ran as credentialed, that the latest plugins are up to date. So the scan is actually looking for the latest vulnerabilities and just stuff like that.
No, that's kind of the day to day. The bar that you said you can't control, and I'm gonna take that for myself. That's a bar. You can't control what anybody does, but you can control the communication. Communication is the main thing that helps keep you a job. Because if you can say, "Hey, this is what I got going on," but you have to make sure you're communicating that to different people. Like, okay, like say if you were starting as a new ISO, the first thing, like even for me, I started a new position. The first thing I did was okay, I'm doing my training, communicating. I'm doing my training. They throwing me all this different systems. Like for example,
Mhm.
the first thing I'm going to do is I'm looking at all the systems. By the time I get back to work, I'm going to have like some updates about what I'm doing, what I have in place, and then just keep communicating through the week. Like, okay, I need this, I need that, but just make sure it's an email too, so that then nobody can say, okay, you didn't do it. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, and being an ISO, it's a lot of things that can happen at that. What are some of the biggest issues that you have doing the role? Is it communication or is it like scanning? Like, what is it for your perspective?
In a word, yes. But the biggest thing for me personally starting out was communication. It's actually funny. A lot of people they always talk about how your degree doesn't necessarily translate. The most useful class I took for my degree was a business communication. And the biggest problem I had with communicating is I knew how to say things and structure them, but I'm a rambler. I'm very verbose in what I say. I just go on and on. So you people just want to know, for example, right? The sysadmins just want to know what updates do I need to bring in, what's a priority. And you sitting there telling them, oh, 4 score and 7 years ago, I found out this scan and this is the latest thing. You already lost them. So by the time you get to the important thing you need them to do, you lost them. And then now I'm getting mad. I'm like, why aren't they listening to what I'm saying? It's because you didn't get to the point. So the biggest thing that I started doing that I learned was I put the BLU at bottom line up front and I tell them the exact action I need to take. So that all you have to do is read that bluff and the subject, and you don't even have to read my whole email to understand. Everything else is just extra context.
Okay, I'm actually curious on this. If you don't mind, can you give a quick example, like just off the top, if you have it?
Yeah, sure. So the biggest thing I would say with vulnerabilities is that, and this is what I would say is kind of like my specialty. I'm really good at looking through, and I try to work with them by showing them that I'm on their side. So I'll show, like, hey, we got XYZ vulnerabilities, and we have this poem addressed by this date. And so what I'll put in the subject is I'll just say, hey, are we still good for XYZ date for this poem? And then I'll say, hey, just checking in. The bluff would just be, please let me know and provide concurrence for this vulnerability because a part of this poem, I need to make sure that we're tracking to meet this date. So that all they have to do is read those two sentences and say yes. Everything else in the email is just me giving specifics and more context. But what I found is that when people want to process their email, if it takes them more than a few seconds, they're just going to skip it.
Yeah. And I respect that. You just got to get straight to the point, especially doing with system administrators and people like that. Because if you just like, if you play around and stop or just give them alone, they're like, all right, what's the point? This is wasting my time because they got other things to do. Sometimes they're sticking, they're building. So I like how you get straight to the point with that. And a lot of your position, in particularly, most ISSOs, and I think we had this conversation. We're gonna get into it a little bit more. Most ISSOs don't even do the vulnerability scanning. Even for myself, I may be doing vulnerability scanning in the future, but like we talked about, that's a whole different job. Can you explain like what is the process of vulnerability scanning? What vulnerability scanning tools are you using? And how do you get straight to the point when it comes to that?
Great question. So that was one of the things I actually learned in RMF Academy. I wanted to do it just because I was really interested in it. So I was really excited that on the job they let me do it. But we use primarily Nessus and ACAS. And for those of y'all who don't know, ACAS is like the DoD's specialized suite that they use. They built on top of Nessus, but it's got extra components and functionality for their specific needs. So it looks a bit different and runs a bit different. So I always say, like I tell my students, I could tell you the whole formalized vulnerability management lifecycle, but ain't nobody got time for that. I'll just tell you what I actually do in real life. The first thing I do when I spot a vulnerability is you identify it by running the scan. And then after I see it, the first thing I do is I check, did I actually run the scan correctly? Are the plugins up to date? The plugins are what actually checks, let you know what the vulnerabilities are. And if you don't have the latest plugins, you're not looking for the latest vulnerabilities. It's pretty much a waste of time. Second thing is you want to make sure it was a credentialed or authenticated scan. The difference here is big because if it's not credentialed, it's not going to give you a full picture of the system because it needs to be able to log in and check the configurations and all that good stuff. You're not going to be able to know if it's not credentialed. And then the third thing you need to be able to check is the impact. And it's easy to look at the CVSS score, which is the critical vulnerability scoring system. That's good. But in my experience, you really don't want to stop there because, and this is where it can get a little bit tricky, you don't need to be technical, but you need to be technically literate. Because if you come and say these technically inaccurate things, you're going to create a bunch of work for the sysadmins and they're going to start ducking you. And it's going to be really hard for you to get your work done, in my experience. So you want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row and you know what you're talking about. So when I go, I don't just, what I used to do is I would just send them a PDF of just every single vulnerability. I was like, hey, here, fix this. And we go back and forth and back and forth. Now I actually look at it, I prioritize it by the system, the criticality of the system, the impact it would have, and what are the resources it would take to fix. So for example, if it's just a patch, I'm not going to tell them KB, XYZ, whatever the actual number is. I'm just going to say, hey, look, this many are patches. This is an actual vulnerability and this is an insecure configuration. And just that one small change is like, oh, thank you. Work started getting done just like that.
No, that's actually a good point. Let me tell you, brother, when I first started, I used to send them everything.
Same.
Literally everything. They'd be like, they would ignore the heck out of me. I'm serious. And even up until, let's say, like 3-4 years of my career, I finally, and that's something you made an early fix in. But once you figure that out, you just send them what you need first. Like you said, like the mission impact ones, like the high ones, you send them straight up those. Can you be quickly patched? They'll do that probably in a day, and you can do it in a day. And then you can slowly get to the other one. So I like that you broke that down and it's simplified. That's actually a good analogy. So that's a good one. Also with vulnerabilities, is there any other issues you deal with system administrators when it comes to vulnerability scanning? And also, where do you get the plugins at? Are you downloading the plugins? Are you updating? How you uploading Tenable?
That's a good question. So it depends on the kind of system. If it's an air gap system, you got to download it on the outside and bring it in. But if not, if it's a open system that's connected to the internet or has an external connection, you can just set it up to where the plugins automatically update. But it
Okay.
kind of depends on the type of system you got.
And you took on this role. Did you know how to do this role, or you just learned as you go?
Kind of. I knew I had a, so I like to read about this for fun. So I knew a lot of theory, but when it came to the actual practice, I was just kind of figuring it out as I went along.
Okay. Like, what are some resources did you use when you was practicing it?
Oh, great question. So the biggest thing, and I always promote it all the time, I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn Learning. It's even better now. So my personal, the one that I took was by Mike Chappell. He's done a ton of stuff. He's very prolific. He wrote the CISSP book. I like the way he explains stuff because he just tells you very simple, straight to the point, and that he just gives you a solid breakdown of vulnerability management using Nessus. But you don't necessarily. I think it's useful outside of Nessus, but I just use Nessus. That's what I know. But this is
Okay.
really cool. Hack the Box and LinkedIn Learning have teamed up, so you can actually have a virtual environment and run scans yourself for free because LinkedIn Learning is free through participating local libraries and schools. If you just call around, I promise you, you'll find one. So you can actually go in there, run Nessus scans, and see what I'm talking about. What's an authenticated scan? What's not an authenticated scan? How do you find the host? How do you set scan targets? All that good stuff. You can do it. You put that in there, a project on your LinkedIn, that's going to make you stand out.
I mean, that's a bar, and you're not lying at all. PG County, if you get I think you get a library card, you can use LinkedIn Learning for free, like legit free. So that's something that nobody has never said before. So you definitely in your bag when it comes to that. That's something that nobody talks about. I posted it one time, but I don't know if anybody used it. But it's free, and I like that you said use Hackbox because it's partnered with LinkedIn Learning, so you can actually run it in your environment and things like that. So that's a good bar. And also when it comes to vulnerabilities, sometimes you're not gonna. And a lot of people think when you're doing these scans, you're gonna always patch and fix everything. Sometimes you can't fix. Can you explain the process on when you're creating a POAM, risk register, and just kind of the process on how you create POAMs and remediate them?
Absolutely. So whenever you can't fix something, again, we got to control the communication. So we can't just tell, definitely not our ISM and definitely not our AO. They're like, hey, we just couldn't fix it. We have to maintain a certain level of risk acceptance. So to do that, we have to create a poem, which is a plan of action and milestones, which is our way of covering ourselves, that we actually have a plan to address it, and keeping everyone on the same page of what the timeline is and what we're going to do. And this is where I had to, actually not even shameless plug, I'm just shout out to RMF Academy.
Thank
You
you.
showed me how to write poems in a way more efficient way. Because before, my poems were just like one sentence, like, hey, we got this vulnerability and we're gonna fix it. Not very descriptive at all. And another point that you made is like someone else should be able to come in with your same knowledge but none of the context and read that poem and know everything that's going on. And they couldn't do it. So now I have a much more detailed with actual action plans and steps of who is involved and who to reach out to for each particular thing. So if it's remediation, we know it's the sysadmins or the ISSOs engineers. If it's just making sure that the documentation is updated, keeping everyone in the loop, that's going to be me. You know.
No, no, and I appreciate you for the shout out. Definitely with poems. Even when I was working in the field, I'll be like, "Why is this one sentence for a poem, or why is it not detailed?" Because poems really help you. They really break
Yes.
down what's going on, and think about it. Say if you just come into a system, you're like, "What's going on?" You don't know if it's fixed. You don't know who to talk to. You don't know anything. So poems are important, and tracking them to completion is important because if we don't get those fixed, and like you said, communication. If they don't have no ID, we don't know it's tracked. That could we could have been fixed something that we're not even tracking. So I
Hmm.
respect you saying that, man. So also too, can you talk about like from you working in the positions and you recently got different opportunities? What are hiring managers actually looking for? And when it comes to negotiating salary, what is your thoughts on negotiating salary and things like that? Kind of break that down to me.
All right. So this is a great question because I get this a lot of what hiring managers are looking for. I always say that it kind of, I hate to say it like, but it really does depend on where you're at and what their needs are. So what I would say, and this is what's personally helped me, is I started a business in 2023, and so I kind of take that approach to my work. So I come in and I ask them like, what are their needs? What are they looking for? And I try to tweak my skills as a way to solve their specific pain points. So, for example, if I know for a fact that they need someone who is reliable and can hold their own technically, then that's what I'll focus on. But I always let them talk first about what they need, and then I tie it into what I need. So, the biggest thing that I know a lot of employers are looking for is they're looking for experienced professionals. One of the biggest disconnects that I see is that so many people, students, and everyone alike, is like, every day I'm hearing about this cybersecurity shortage, but I can't find a job. Where's the shortage? Are they lying? And I'm like, no, they only told a half truth is because the shortage is not at the entry level. The shortage is after you hit that in my opinion, is 5+ years. Once you hit that 5+ years, then there's a shortage because they're desperately looking for experienced people because they don't have enough time to necessarily train people, and they want to bring someone in and just know that you're going to be able to figure things out, which is number one thing I would say. Learning how to learn. Again, I'm gonna plug it again. LinkedIn Learning. There's a course on learning how to learn. Almost anything you want is on that LinkedIn Learning. The second thing I would say is that this is really a personal thing. I really did not prioritize soft skills at all early on in my career. I was just like, I'm good. I know what I'm doing, and that's all that matters. If you do not prioritize soft skills in your career, you're going to hit a ceiling super fast because the higher you get up, the more collaboration there is, and it's just going to be one fight after another.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's like, even for me, when I was looking for another position, I've done the role so much, so I thought I could just explain, just say, hey, this is what I do. They just hire me. But no, you actually have to communicate what you can do, even when you're even just the basic, just communication, caring, just things like that. Like, because when you get into the office, you got to talk to people. Like, you got to go, hey, how you doing? What's up? You got to really, in communication, I would say, Emmanuel, too, is the best skill you can learn. Even me, I'm looking to join in Toastmasters just so I can make sure I can improve to really expose the knowledge that you really have. And I know, and I can tell from talking to you, you have that skill. You can talk to anybody, man, because you listen and you just keep it going. So yeah, I mean, what do you think about the salaries though? Like, if somebody was trying to, and also too, I wanted to get back to that last topic. You said that there's a shortage in tech cybersecurity. It's not a shortage. It's just people want to get, and I can tell you this from my perspective, people want to get into these roles, but you're not willing to like learn the stuff. Like, for example, say for somebody want to, I never worked system admin. I jumped straight into ISSO. My story a little bit different because I had a lot of those qualifications ahead of time, but a lot of people can't just jump into ISSO. I would suggest, even for ISSO, you gotta already be in the gov space. Number one, I would recommend most system admins becoming ISSOs, or you can just go straight into it. If you have a connection, you can learn the stuff, but a lot of people can't do it. But you got to tailor your job. You got to tailor what you're doing to the job you want, and you'll get a job quickly. But a lot of people just don't want to start off in IT. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that too. I think because there's a lot of people see other people and just kind of assume, like, for example, if you see a shirt that looks really good on someone, you wouldn't get the exact same shirt at the exact same size because you understand it wouldn't fit you the same. But people do that same thing with career advice all the time. Is it just like, well, this worked for Emmanuel, so I'm going to copy it? And I'm like, it's not really how that works because you don't know the same background or what fits them or anything. So I think you're spot on. For me, I got in. I'm not gonna lie, I just lowballed myself. I just got in by any chance. I lowballed myself because I knew they would let me in, and then I overperformed, and that's what I just kept doing until I didn't have to anymore. But I don't like to give out that advice because I know a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, know your worth this, know your worth," but you also have to know the climate that you're in. I was in South Carolina, right, with no network, and I was a new grad with no experience. What leverage did I had to command any kind of salary? You got to be realistic with where you are, So that's the one thing I would say. The second thing, you're right. A lot of people don't want to do the work, but I can tell you as a professor, I don't think they communicate what the real life is. I really think that people think that once they get into cybersecurity, it's going to be like a music video. Basically, they're just going to walk in, big chain on, all this money. They're going to come in, tap on the computer and go. And it's like, no, if you really want to stay competitive in here, you got to be like you. Like you grind. I can see that you working, you studying after work, and you're doing your pocket. Like, you have to really keep yourself sharp because, in my opinion, 1.5 years to 2 years, if you're not staying sharp, you're gone.
It's the truth, man. Like, even with me, when I'm working in my jobs now, I do my work there, but sometimes I have to go at home. I got to learn more about CMMC. I got to go learn about ACAS nested scanning. I have no choice because when you're getting a certain type of salary, you got to make sure that you're earning that salary, if that makes sense. So you have to put in the work. People think if you get 6 figures, you're going to be on the beach, it's chilling, but it's the sad reality, man. Like, you got to produce, a lot of these companies produce. It's an investment, it's like the NBA. If you ain't scoring, I was watching this soccer player recently. He's like, my job is a striker. He said, if I don't make no goals, then they're going to go find somebody else. It's the truth, man. It's the salary. That's a business at the end of the day. But in cybersecurity, don't make no money. you know. So you got to do what you got to do, man. I mean, the GovTech space it makes some money because you're actually doing the task, but I get it on that. And when it comes to salary, you said you lowballed yourself in the beginning. I get where you're coming from. It's like a lot of times people don't understand with certain roles you can act straight up. I mean, we talked about it, like for ISSO, it depends on where you at, depends on where you is, but we talked about it. You can maybe ask for it, but you got to understand if you do ask for it, they're expecting you to kind of. They don't. I don't expect any job I go to now to train me. To be honest with you, so you're gonna have to train yourself. You're gonna have to come in early. You're gonna have to leave late. You're gonna have to do it after work. Is this something that you really want to do? A lot of people don't really want to do it because it's a lot of work. I mean, I would say for myself, I'm talking to tech about all day, to be honest with you. But yeah, what's your thoughts on salary though? What should you ask for? I mean, it just depends on the area, or what you think?
I'm gonna be honest. That was one thing I've never been good at, salary negotiations. That's one of my weak points. So what I just do is I start off with just researching the market rate based on my experience. AI has been a big help with that too, to be honest. And what I do is I always go a little bit above what I want to start. So that way, if it goes down, I don't really care. So I would say for a starting salary, this is the big mistake I made. Don't look at the national average, completely ignore it. Look at your specific state because they bring in this New York and California, and then you feel like you're getting ripped off, but you're really not.
Yeah.
Make sure you look at your state and look at official sources. The Bureau of Labor Statistics. Okay, look at official sources. Don't just ask your friend or someone else that this, because you don't know who they knew or how they got in or what other things they're doing. And you can speak to this too. I can't tell you how many times you walk into a role and then you end up doing two and a half different roles.
Yeah.
Right. So you're looking at them and you're like, well, he's getting paid a lot of money, but you don't know how much work this dude's putting in or this woman's putting in.
Yeah, it's the truth. You don't know what they're doing. Some people are just doing one thing, like we talked about, like vulnerability analysts. Like literally, all they doing is probably scanning, but you don't know how many systems they scanning for. They scanning probably all day. Literally all they doing is scanning. So you don't know what they're doing, but it just depends. You just ask for what you. I would say always ask for a good salary, but just know the more you go. If you're asking for like 200,000-300,000, just know you're gonna live there.
Yes.
You just know you're gonna live there. So just be aware. That's why for me, like, and then too, like when you get your salary, it's just like you're gonna get taxed so much. Tax is gonna eat at it anyway. So it's like, does it matter if you're making this or not? Because it's gonna be gone anyway.
That is such a really good point because I did not account for that at all in my first year. Because I just thought I had no idea about taxes. I just thought everybody gets a refund every year. And the IRS gave me a rude awakening last year and said, no, you owe this much. And I was like, how am I still owing money and you withheld taxes? I had no idea. Apparently, if you're working two jobs, you have to adjust your withholding. And I did not do that. So that is a big thing.
And that's the thing people don't talk about in tech too. Is like Uncle Sam will get you, man. You think you're making all this money, but it's like Uncle Sam is going to get you because you're going to get to the point where you're paying instead of getting,
Yes.
and no more refunds.
Yes.
Also, too, so you're an adjunct professor, and congratulations to you, man. I like seeing people like you in the classroom and things like that. You teach cybersecurity. From teaching cybersecurity, what's the difference between teaching cybersecurity in the classroom from what really goes on in the actual workplace? What are some of the things you're experiencing as an adjunct professor?
That is a great question. First, I do want full transparency. I'm no longer an adjunct professor as of May because I started my master's at Georgia Tech, and that took a lot more time than I expected. I was burnt out. That first semester running from class and then doing my classwork and then still doing work and trying to keep up. I just broke down. I couldn't do it. But from my past, what I noticed is that the biggest thing is the gap of expectations, and people tend to think and they come and like, okay, what's the one cert? What's the one degree? What's the one skill I need to know? And I always say it's a skill stack. In my experience, it's a skill stack, not one skill. So, for example, for me, it would be communication, vulnerability management, and sysadmin experience, and then, all that stuff kind of ties together. And that's what makes me unique. But none of my individual skills are really something super spectacular that no one else could do. You know what I mean? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that academia kind of lags behind the real world because we have a formal kind of long process to get textbooks reviewed, and in there it's a really long thing. So by the time the book even gets published, the information could already be 1 to 2 years old. So what I did, I taught the book and then I injected my personal experience. I'm like, hey, this is what the book says so that you know, but this is also in the real world. Because one of the biggest mistakes I made when I came in is I had a lot of confidence because I like to read a lot. So I was like, oh, I know the search says to do X, Y, and Z, and you need a different person to do this. And they're like, well, we have a budget, and the budget says we're not hiring a different person to do this, so we need a different solution. You know,
No, I understand. Like even with me, like sadly that when you did RMF Academy, we didn't have an email simulator. I apologize. I was just trying to get it up to
no
date
problem.
then. But I noticed with training now, like even when I learned in the beginning on RMF Academy, it's like, okay, we give you the information. Okay, that's cool. The main thing that separates a lot of it now is like actually having hands on. So I think the hands on person is what I think that's how college needs to go now. Like they need to actually put them in an environment or actually do an internship or find some way to simulate that. I think that that's what college needs because, like you said, I've been to schools and it's like, okay, it's like you're giving me information, but it's so outdated. I'm like, dude, like, is this really going to help me? I mean, but it helps sometimes. But I don't really know right now. So, yeah, what is your thoughts? Do you think school is still necessary for tech or cybersecurity, or do you think it's good to just have a degree? Like, what do you think, Emmanuel?
I have this is a very contentious topic, but I have mixed feelings. So I'm biased, right? Because I'm a professor and
Understood.
I went to college and I got my clearance because of a recommendation from college. Like my entire career exists because of college. So that's how I got my connections. That's how I got my clearance. That's how I got my everything exists from college. However, I understand that everyone doesn't always have the opportunity and they're not always super academic like me. Like I enjoy reading textbooks for fun and I understand that's not for everybody, right? So I would say this is where really knowing yourself comes in. If you know you're someone like me and you like school and you like studying and you're going to go out and you're going to talk to the people and do it, yeah, go ahead and go to school. But it's not as easy to recommend because of the price these days. So for me, I didn't have to pay a dime for my first 2 years because I went to a tech school on scholarship and then I transferred in and then I won a couple more scholarships. So school did not cost me that much. So I didn't have to do as much of a cost benefit analysis if school was worth it. And even now with my master's, my employer paid for it. They're paying for it so far. So I know for a lot of people, it's like, oh, easy for you to say because you didn't have to pay. But it's like, yeah, at the same time, it's a lot of work. Like people don't just give you scholarship money because they think you're cool. They expect you to perform as well. So I would say to address the biggest point that I hear, which is school is too much theory and not enough hands-on. Yes, but one thing people got to understand is you got to understand different perspectives. Academics believe that it's my job to teach you about an interdisciplinary approach and give you the core concepts. And it's your job to figure out how you're going to apply it and get a job. And students look at it and say, no, 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 no. I'm not paying you tens of thousands of dollars for you to then go put it on me. I'm paying tens of thousands of dollars so you can give me the information to get a job. I don't want to hear about all this interdisciplinary stuff and these fancy concepts. In my opinion, your theory informs your practice. I don't believe it's one and another. Because if you don't know the theory, it's going to take you way longer to get spun up with hands on. Right. And if you have no hands on experience, you'll be like I was starting out, too much confidence and not enough actual output, you know. So I would say the best way to get around that, if you can, do both. Because if you're creative, there are a bunch of ways to get college done for cheap or for free. For example, dual enrollment. I had 12 college credits before I even entered college because we did they partnered with our high school to give us those. They also have these things called CLEP exams where you can just test out of stuff. And I used it to test out of a couple classes that I didn't want to pay for, frankly.
No, I understand. I respect that.
And the third thing is scholarships, and a lot of people they dismiss this so bad. I needed scholarships so bad. I read 3 books on it to figure out how to get them. It was Confessions of a Scholarship Winner. I think it's Christina something, and I don't. I think it's like Debt Free You, and there was one other book. So the way to win scholarships, and this is how I did it, you want to be a big fish in a small pond. So what most people do is they go for these big scholarships that'll clear out everything. No, I went for $500 here, $2,000 there. My biggest one was like 3K. But if you stack them all up, it was a lot of money for me. Like I thought I was balling when I got my first $1,000 scholarship because it was after the semester started. So they just cashed me out, and I just blew all that money on some food. I didn't even
No, that ain't funny.
I didn't even use it on anything. So if you want to go to college, I think the opportunity is there, but just understand the landscape is not what it used to be. It's not the big differentiator, and you got to use it. So, for example, like in gov, I'll tell you right now, for my job, you had to have a degree to do it, or they wouldn't even consider you. But if you're not in the government and you know specifically what you want to do, I think this is why I'm so big on going to conferences. Go and talk to decision makers. They'll tell you what you need to do.
They'll tell you. They'll tell you. It's just up to you to listen. Like sometimes I'll be telling somebody something. I'll be literally telling the whole game. I'd be like, this is what I would do. And then I'd be like, it's up to you to use it. You know what I'm saying? I can't force nobody to use anything I told them. I'm like, listen, bro, if I can go back, I probably would have asked for this. Or I'll go back. This is what I do first. And another thing, if I can go back, I'll probably just be quiet and just learn. Because like with a lot of older people, I learned like, and you probably know this too, Emmanuel. Sometimes they just want to tell you something, and you just listen, just don't say nothing, and they'll tell you everything. They'll give you the whole blueprint. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
I respect it, and I agree with you too. I'm biased too. I have a master's degree and I have a bachelor's. If I never went to school, I would not be in the position I'm in. But it's like it's a catch-22. It's like, and again, the people can't afford it, so it's like I don't know no more. But I would say going to school still helps. I would always recommend somebody have a degree. Is something that nobody can take from you.
Absolutely. I always say the short answer, like if you already got connections and you already have a financial base, you probably don't need a degree. But if you're just coming from like for me from zero, I don't even know how I would have gotten into this space if I had not gone to college. So I wouldn't even have known what I didn't know to meet the people or learn the skills or anything. And it created a great environment. I had a great relationship with my teachers and all that. So I'm a huge fan of college. I enjoyed it so much. I went back to go and teach it, right? And I went back to go and do my master's. But I understand that's not the best for everyone. So I would say is your most of your audience, is it GovTech mostly?
Oh yeah, most of my audience is in GovTech, but in general, cybersecurity in general. But you can definitely speak to everybody if you want to.
Okay, cool. So I was saying GovTech, just do whatever you can to get you a bachelor's for as cheap as you can. Don't even worry about the pedigree of the school. Because I just went to University of South Carolina. See, now people think Georgia Tech now, but I wasn't at Georgia Tech. I couldn't afford it when I was doing my bachelor's. I just went to my local state school and I did fine. So do whatever you can just to get you a bachelor's so you don't get filtered out. In the private sector, I wouldn't even worry about it. I know a ton of people printing money in the private sector that don't even have a degree. In that case, I would just focus on what you can produce, your projects, and just networking.
And the biggest thing you said is like just get a degree as cheap as possible. To be honest with you, it depends. And this is my perspective. You could chime in too. If you get an Ivy League degree, maybe that's a little different because you can be connected to certain type of people. But to be honest with you, man, like I don't think degrees matter, like where you get it, as long as you have it, as long as it's accredited, and that's my perspective on it. Get it as cheap as possible. I don't think people care. It depends on what you're trying to do, and maybe people care, or maybe for status, but just get a degree, man. It's this, if I can go back, I would have went to UDC. I probably wouldn't have had no money, no student loans because UDC would be virtually free. But it's like people like, put down on sometimes your state schools and things like that you don't want to go. But people outside the country, like no example, UDC has so many foreigners go there. They'll kill for opportunity to go to UDC. And I could have went there basically for free. So I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, definitely. I would say this is a little bit. Actually, I'll go ahead and say it anyway. This has been my experience. It depends on the viewpoint of the decision maker if your degree matters. In my experience, for the legacy people like the baby boomers and such, they want to see that you have a degree because it tells them that you can finish something and you stick to it. And they usually want to see it directly in your profession. When it comes to like the middle age, like Gen X, kind of that area, they like to see some type of degree, but they don't really care what you got it in. Millennials and below, I've yet to see a single one that cares about a degree. At least the ones that are decision makers. They're like, can you just do this work? I don't care.
I agree. So I want to transition to something too. Like with AI is becoming big in the space with RMF, vulnerability management. It's everybody's adapting AI. What do you think about how it's changing the space and how should people use it going forward?
Great question. So I would say with AI, I'm still learning. So I'm far from an expert on it, but at least for me, I use it to help me research a lot faster. So, for example, I use it for salary negotiations. I'll just be like, hey, pull all the salaries from Georgia. Here's my resume. Here's everything that I know. What's a fair range? And then I start from there. You could also use it to help you learn a lot faster, which is a great way. It's so awesome. You can learn so much quicker now. You can tell it to explain it to you six different ways and make a haiku, and it'll do it. You could learn. The third thing I would say is you definitely don't need to be building AI agents, but you should be literate in what it is. You should know about agentic AI because it's not going anywhere. But at the same token, don't be super scared and think that your job's going away because you still need a human in the loop. You still need a decision maker to actually own that decision. So I don't really foresee our jobs going away anytime soon, unless the entire legal system as we know it changes.
No, I agree, and I agree. Just use AI as a tool. Just try to be familiar with it. In my opinion, it's just like the tokens cost so much money. Only certain companies can afford to really use them. So it's like they say it's going to replace, but we'll see. I will see, but I think you should definitely just like you said, just use it as a tool. Get familiar with it. Don't be scared of it, and just start building. Because a lot of companies, especially the bigger companies, want you to learn how to build and build things too.
Absolutely.
So looking ahead, what are your thoughts on what are the biggest opportunities coming in the GovTech space more recently? Is it in ARM, like for example RMF? Is it CMMC? Is it cloud? Is it quantum? Is it all these things that's coming? What do you think the biggest opportunities are right now in the GovTech space in general?
Great question. I would say definitely from what I'm seeing, AI governance and cloud security. A lot of them are pivoting and they're trying to figure out how to implement both of those in a secure way. A lot of people want to be able to use AI and they want to use it in a secure way and they know they need to do it, but they don't entirely know how. Some don't know how it works. So if I was starting out as a in my career, I would get started on that immediately because again, the field is so new. It's like there's nobody really with that much experience in it. So it's a great idea and a great way to get started. Cloud security's been around for a while, but at least in the government, I don't really think they took it all that seriously until recently. This has just been my experience. So I think those are the two biggest things: cloud security and AI governance.
Okay, that sounds good. That I don't have nothing to say on that. That's going to be the things you need to learn. Cloud is becoming more and more pop. Again, you've been around for years. It's just everybody's using it now, especially in GovTech. GovTech can be slowly to adopt. So that's the biggest things I'm gonna take from it. Then, and I just want to ask you two more questions. So the first thing is, when it comes to learning ISSO, RMF, things like that. Can you just give me a perspective on what you think about RMF Academy and how it can help different people? Because sometimes you can go to certain boot camps, they don't explain RMF or don't work in the field. But can you explain from your perspective what your thoughts on that is?
I think RMF Academy was fantastic because of not just the content, it was the content, the way you explain it, and the way it's structured. If it was just a video course, I don't think it would have been as good because for me personally, I really like that you delivered it live so I could just raise my hand and ask you questions. Whereas I don't have to worry about getting stuck and then searching something and getting distracted by some ad I saw or something like that. The second thing is the content was perfect because you gave just enough theory explaining why our job exists, what we're supposed to be doing, and then you actually explain what we're supposed to do. I buy a course at least once a month or a quarter. And I think you did the absolute best on explaining what we actually do on the day to day. Because
Mhm.
I had a lot of theory. I knew what I was supposed to be doing in theory, but I didn't really know how that translated to our actual actions and what the decision makers considered as progress and what was good in their eyes, what they saw as KPIs. The third thing is I just like the way you explain things because it was from a practitioner's point of view, and it just immediately clicked with me. So those are the three things I would say.
No, I appreciate you. And definitely, that's the reason I created it, just so I can make sure that if you're actually going to do the role, it can translate whether it's salary negotiations, actual interview questions, actually dealing with people. It's something that you actually deal with. I kind of it's for people that literally just need training on becoming an ISSO or just having a blueprint going forward. Because even with RMF Academy, that's the reason why I'm able to take on different roles. Because I'm like, okay, let's go back to the beginning. What do I do? What is the first thing I do when I start the job? Who do I start doing? Building the org chart, building it. That's what I'm doing currently when I start new positions. I do the same thing. So, I appreciate you taking it. I'm going to just keep doing it live because I like doing it live so you can get that perspective. So, and then thank you for the advice too. And yeah, that helped. And thank you for the honest answer, And the next thing we're going to get into is the last question is, if you were talking, there's somebody in this podcast that's trying to get to cybersecurity in the next 12 months. What is some roadmap you can recommend to them just so they can get to cybersecurity, whatever role they want to do, or just get in tech in general? What would you tell them?
Great question. So I would say if you already have your Security Plus or you already have a clearance and a little bit of IT experience, the best thing you can do is go to my LinkedIn and get the Clear Cyber Roadmap. It's free. I'll lay out exactly what I would have done, but I'll give you a shortened version here. You got to get your Security Plus because it's required for you to work on any DoD systems. And then from there, I would look into the CGRC because it gives you a really good idea of what we do and who owns each task and role. Even though it, in my opinion, it doesn't map perfectly to reality because they gave a lot of tasks that the ISSO does to the ISO, but it's good because you'll be literate and you'll understand the terminology, so you won't just come in there clueless. After you get your experience, as soon as you can, I would go straight for the CISSP. That's what's going to get you the interviews. At least that's what did it for me. And along the way, you always want to learn something new and go out and talk to people, network, go to conferences. That's how you're going to figure out and stay up to date on everything. If you're starting from absolute zero, then what I would recommend is you want to develop a baseline competency in a bunch of things and have a T-shaped knowledge. So you want to have a general idea of a bunch of different things, and then you want to laser focus in on one thing. And people always ask me, "Oh, how do you know what to laser focus in on?" Start where you're at. Whatever company you're at, just go around and just ask them what their problems are. Companies don't always have the most unique problems, and then you just start from there. And that's what I recommend.
Now that's a good roadmap. Definitely, that's a good breakdown. So, Emmanuel, where can the audience find you? Just get that roadmap, and just in general, where can they find you if they just want to keep up with you or ask you questions?
Great. So I would recommend, I'm pretty much only active on LinkedIn. I'm looking to expand soon, but between working and this master's, LinkedIn is about all I can handle right now. So LinkedIn is the best way to find me.
Okay, so make sure, audience, you check him out on LinkedIn, see what he's doing. Just know he's busy right now. He's doing a master's, he's working. So just keep that in mind. If he doesn't get back to you fast, that's the reason.
Thank you.
And also, what is one last thing you want to give to the audience? It could be a statement, a thing, or a question, or anything you want to say to the audience to motivate them to keep trying to get into tech and just keep going.
Yeah, the biggest thing I would say is, well, gotta cheat a little bit. I'll say two things. Number one, you could only connect the dots looking back. It's easy to look at me now and go, oh, CISSP and Georgia Tech and all the stuff I've done. I did not write out and plan all that stuff. I just looked at where I was at and just tried to plot like a general. What's the next best move based on my current situation? And then you'll end up where you need to be, and it'll all make sense looking back. Don't feel like you need to have some perfect plan getting started. The second thing, and I really hope y'all were paying attention when Chris said this, do not expect employers to train you. If they do, just treat it like a bonus.
Yeah.
Treat your career like your responsibility. Write out your own roadmap, your own expectations and milestones, and get those things done. So that way, the last thing you want to do is sit on a job for years and you have no idea, no deliverables to show for it because you just kind of got complacent, which is very easy to do in tech. And remember, there's room for everybody. Sometimes it's going to be harder for you. Ignore everyone else's journey and just remember, just stay on what your plan is and what your goal is and stick to it. It's not easy, but it's worth it.
Man, that was a bar, man. Just worry about your own journey. That's a bar because everybody different. For me, I went the harder route. Somebody go the easy route. That's something that's going to stick to a lot of people. And that's a good bar. So thank you, Emmanuel, for coming on this podcast on this morning. I appreciate you, especially on the weekend. So thank you for coming on. It's an honor to have you on when I first met you, I just was like, yeah, I gotta talk to brother, man. Brother knows his stuff, and we just gonna continue to build a relationship over time. So thank you for coming on, Emmanuel.
Thank you for having me.
So remember, everybody, if you like the podcast, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below. And if you want to learn about governance, RMF, in the GovTech space, risk management, remember to check out RMF Academy. We got a cohort every month. So remember, everybody, get 1% better every day. Peace out. I'll see you on the next one.